Every village has a night it wishes to forget. A night when the wind carried more than dust. A night when love stood trembling and betrayal sharpened its teeth in the dark. In the land of Obiara, where the drums speak louder than kings and the ancestors breathe through fire, there was once a night when joy dressed itself like celebration, only to reveal itself as sacrifice. This is the night the drums chose blood. Before the screaming, before the fire swallowed promises, before hearts were torn between love and power. There was a festival, and on that night, two souls found each other again. But the spirits were already watching. The sky burned red as the sun sank behind the palms. Smoke curled into the evening air like a message to the ancestors. Children ran barefoot across warm earth. Women painted their faces with sacred clay. Men beat drums that echoed into the bones of the land. Before the night broke, before love turned to war, there was a village named Obiara where drums spoke to the dead, and in that village a fire was about to choose its victims. Once a year, Obiara danced with their ancestors. The living and the dead met in a rhythm, but joy has a scent and darkness always follows it. In Obiara, the festival of masks was not just celebration, it was remembrance, it was warning. It was the one night the living danced so loudly that even the dead turned their heads to listen. Fire rose in the center of the village, tall and hungry, licking the night as if it could taste what was coming, and around that fire, she danced. Princess Zina. She moved like the wind remembered her. Every step carried the grace of a woman who knew she was watched, but not the danger of who was watching. Beads shimmered against her skin. Red cloth wrapped her like a promise made by the earth itself. The fire painted gold across her face, and in that moment she did not look like a princess. She looked like a prayer, but even prayers can be answered by the wrong God. Beyond the light of the festival, past the last hut where laughter reached, a figure stood in the dark. He had been gone long enough for the village to forget the boy he once was. Long enough for the forest to carve him into something harder. He left a boy. He returned a weapon, but even weapons remember who they love. Ayo, hunter, exile, son of Obiara. He stepped forward slowly, the firelight finding him inch by inch, revealing scars the village had never seen, revealing eyes that had watched too many nights alone. He did not come for celebration, he came for her, for Princess Zina, his betrothed. As he stepped into the glow of the fire, the drums seemed to shift, not stop, just change. And across the dancing circle, Zina turned. Their eyes met. The world did not end. The drums did not stop. No one screamed, but something deep in the bones of the night moved. There are moments when time forgets how to move forward. This was one of them. Two hearts, separated by years and silence, found each other again in a single breath. He did not smile. She did not speak. But the space between them filled with everything they had never said, and in that space, danger was already growing. Later, when the drums grew louder and the crowd grew thicker, she slipped away. Behind the huts, where the moon touched the ground gently and the fire became a distant glow, she found him waiting. For a moment, neither spoke. Some silences are too heavy to break carelessly. "You came back," she said finally, her voice barely more than breath. "I never left you," he answered. It was not a line meant to charm. It was truth, heavy, unavoidable. Years had passed, seasons had turned, but the space in his chest where she lived had never changed. She stepped closer, close enough to see the scars time had written on his face, close enough to feel the warmth of someone who had walked through darkness and returned alive. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I came to take you away," he said, not as a question, not as a hope, as a decision. Her eyes flickered with something dangerous. Hope is a beautiful thing, and a terrible one. Because hope makes people brave enough to risk everything. Their hands found each other, fingers interlocking like they had never learned how to separate. For a moment, the world felt possible, and then the drums stopped. When the drums stop in Obiara, people listen. The king rose slowly near the great fire, a man whose crown weighed heavier than his conscience. He lifted his staff, and the murmurs died. "My people," he said, his voice echoing across the gathering. "Tonight, we celebrate strength. Tonight, we celebrate protection. Tonight, we celebrate a future where Obiara will never fall." The villagers nodded. They always nodded. But then he said the words that turned joy into ash. "To secure that future, my daughter will be wed, not for love, for power, for the protection of this land." Zina felt her breath leave her body. Ayo's hand tightened around hers. The king continued, "She will be given to the one who has promised us strength beyond armies, protection beyond spears, power beyond kings." From the shadows near the fire, a figure stepped forward. The warlock. He did not move like other men. He moved like something that had learned how to wear skin. Beads hung from his neck like trophies. Symbols carved into his skin pulsed faintly in the firelight. His smile did not reach his eyes. Those eyes were not the eyes of someone who asked. They were the eyes of someone who already owned what he wanted. He looked directly at Zina. Not like a man looks at a bride, like a collector looks at something rare. Ayo felt it rise in his chest, not from the fire, from something older. The warlock bowed slightly to the king, then turned to the crowd. "This union," he said softly, "will bring Obiara a future no enemy can touch." His voice was smooth, persuasive, and completely empty. Because power promised through darkness always asks for something in return. And tonight, it had asked for her. While the village murmured and fear dressed itself as celebration, another conversation unfolded in the dark. Tunde, Ayo's closest friend, brother not by blood, but by everything else. A small pouch of gold was placed in his hand, heavy, shining, tempting. "Tell us where he will run," a voice whispered from the shadows, "and you will never want again. Loyalty is strong, but hunger is patient." Tunda stared at the gold. Then he closed his hand around it, and somewhere the ancestors turned away. Back in the shadows behind the huts, Ayo and Zina clung to each other like time was already running out. "Midnight," he said, "meet me at the edge of the forest. We leave. We will never look back." She nodded, though fear lived in her eyes. "Once we step into the forest," he whispered, "no king can touch us." He did not know the forest was already listening. They pressed their foreheads together, breath mingling, hearts racing. There are moments when love feels stronger than fate. This was one of them, and fate was listening. Midnight came slowly. The village quieted. The fire burned low. The drums rested. At the edge of the forest, Ayo waited. Every sound felt louder in the dark. Every shadow moved like it had a purpose. Then, footsteps. She appeared from the darkness, running toward him. Relief hit his chest like rain after drought. He stepped forward and stopped, because behind her, walking calmly through the night like it belonged to him, was the warlock. Zina turned. Too late, a hand closed around her arm. Ayo reached for his spear. The warlock smiled, and the drums, though no one touched them, began to beat again. Some nights begin with celebration and end with a promise of blood.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. Like and subscribe for more episodes from this. See you soon.